Oh, I hate spring. Okay, so there are two types of interest, and one is simple interest and one is compound interest. So let's first look at those definitions. So interest is calculated once off at the beginning of the time period and is added to the principal. So it's added to the beginning amount. One calculation, that's it. Okay? Whereas interest that is calculated continuously throughout the period and it is constantly added to the accumulated amount. So every time we have a compound, there is a calculation. So my first one is my simple interest, where we calculate once off. And the second one, where we are continuously calculating, is my compound interest. Just a reminder that your investigations are due on Friday. Okay, so we've already written this down, but we are going to look at it again. Simple interest calculated once off at the beginning of the time period and is based on that beginning amount called the principal. We have written this already. There is no need to write it again. Okay, we wrote it earlier in the week and the last time we had, I think, I can't remember. Okay, simple interest calculated once off at the beginning of the time period based on the principal, the interest rate, and the time period. Interest that is calculated at regular intervals throughout the time period that is based on the interest rate, the number of compounds, the time period, and the amount accumulated at each compound. So we are going to start off with what a general idea is, or what is that we are trying to do in general. We are trying to find the accumulated amount each time. Okay, and in simple interest, we use my principal amount plus the interest. Now, interest has its own little calculation, which is my principal times my interest rate. So if I have 2,000 Rand principal with a 12% interest rate, then it would be 2,000 times 12. And here is this combined formula where we say my accumulated amount is my principal plus, and then I did the calculation and I added it together. So I can combine them into one formula. But now I'm gaining interest every time period. So if I have interest per year, I'm gaining interest every single year. So in simple interest, we also need to take the time period into account. So we can write this down. Simple interest, we add the same amount of interest each year, but we can add it all in one go. That's what makes it a one calculation situation. So instead of just the principal times the interest rate, I can also times it by the number of years because it is the same interest every single year. Let us demonstrate by using an example of what simple interest is. So if I borrow 5,000 Rand and I say there that I have 11.5% per annum that I have to pay back extra as interest. That means 11.5% this year, 11.5% next year, because it is 2 years. They want to know how much must be paid back in total. So if we have to pay 11.5% of 5,000 Rand each year, year one's interest would be 575 Rand. Year two's interest would also be 575 Rand. So if I added that together, it's the same as saying 575 times 2. Now you can add it. If I ask you for 10 years, you can add each year separately. Or we can go the quicker route and say, well, I know it has to be the same every year because it's simple interest. Therefore, I can just times by the number of years. So my total interest is 1,150. But my total accumulated amount, which is my principal of 5,000 plus the 1,150, is an accumulated amount of 6,150 Rand. And I do think it's important that we write this very first example down so that future questions come up, you know what is happening. They should be finished writing by now. So this is what we call a split up calculation. And when we do compound, we have to do it that way. And when we do compound later in the week, you'll see why we have to do it this way. But for simple interest, we can actually condense the sum a little bit. So my next slide is showing a condensed sum. Just waiting for Varsity to finish. Okay, so here we are combining it using that principal plus principal times interest rate times number of years. So I'm still doing exactly the same things, I'm just putting it into one calculation. So that whole year one, year two part is in that brackets. 5,000 times 11.5%, but there are 2 years, so I times it by 2. Still adding my principal plus my total interest. And if I ask you what was the interest, you would only give me the bracket part. What we are calculating is the accumulated amount, which is principal plus the interest. So if interest is asked, it is only the bracket part. And I made a very important step there, or note there, that if you're going to use the percentage sign and not a decimal, then in your calculator, you have to use the percentage sign as well. Else your answer is going to be far too big and therefore wrong. And we want to get those marks. So write this one down too, because we have 2 activities coming up, one where we split and one where we do it this way. Okay, let's look at our activity. So we'll do the first one together, then I'll leave the other two for you. So we need to calculate the accumulated amount by splitting up the calculation in the first example, okay, or in this first activity. So if I have 7,250 Rand borrowed, I'm going to calculate my interest. And you can do year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5 in the second one. Or we can just go 8.5% times my principal, which is 7,250, times the 3 years. So when I say split, I mean calculate interest and then add it to your answer, your principal, to get your answer. So like I said, either the decimal, which would be 0.085, or you're using 8.5 with the percentage sign. Thank you. And therefore my accumulated is my 7,250 plus the interest that you just calculated. So my question was, what is the interest? What would your answer be? There we go. What was my interest rate? 8.5%. My principal amount? And my accumulated amount is at 9,098 Rand and 75 cents. So I want you to do number 2 and number 3 in that same format, please. Should be just about finished. Okay, looking at that first one. We have 7,000, that's the one we just did. Here's the first one, 2,250,000 is borrowed at 15.25 per annum simple interest. That means 2,250,000 times, and I have done it in decimal form so that you can see what it looks like, 0,1525. If you use 15.25, as long as you have the percentage on the calculator, I'm happy. And timesing it by 5 years gives me an interest amount of 1,715,625. My accumulated amount, therefore, is still the addition to the 2,250,000. That is giving me 3,965,000 rand, 965,625 rand. Any questions? Did I make a mistake? Did you make a mistake? Can we look at our second one? Any objections? My second one, I had 156,675 rand and 99 cents. I invested it at 10.75% per annum simple interest over 2.5 years. So my interest is the 156,675 rand and 99 cents. Again, I chose the decimal 0.1075 at 2.5 years or 2.5 if you wanted to do the fraction. But be careful, because if you have a Casio, the Casio does not see a mixed fraction the way it should. So rather convert it to the decimal. So that's probably why you got a wrong answer. Probably, because if you try and put the 2 and then next to it the half, so 2, you would have to say 2 plus a half, and then times it by 0.1075 times 156,675.99. And then it would give you the correct answer. So you have to be very careful with a mixed fraction. So either convert it to an improper fraction, so 5/2, or just leave it in decimal form. And that is why I did it on purpose, because I know it's going to become a mistake in a test, and I don't want that. So please make a note in your books, if you have a Casio, to not use mixed fractions. So either use the decimal or the improper fraction. So my interest is 42,106 rand and 67. Will I receive that interest, or do I have to pay that interest? I will receive it because it is an investment. So I get it back. And therefore, adding that to my principal, giving me my accumulated amount of 198,782 and 66 cents. Any questions, grade 10s? Okay, our next activity, we're going to do it in one calculation. So we'll do the first one together. So we have 22,250, which we are borrowing. So I will do my accumulated in one calculation now. With my principal plus my principal times my interest rate. I'll use the percentage this time. Times my number of years, which is 4 years. Showing the two separate amounts. Whatever that calculation is, I'll check now, and then add them together. It's the same, it's still simple interest, but now we're just doing it in one calculation rather than two separate ones. So after after this, you'll be able to choose the way you prefer to answer. But for this activity, we are doing in one calculation. So my interest is 16,125. And adding those together gives me 48,375. So follow that format for your next two, please. Okay, so there's no assessments tomorrow for grade 10, so you'll leave at 1:05 tomorrow. Should be finishing off now with your second one. I will put these slides on towards the end of the week for any reference while you study. Group 1 is at school and they'll be learning a new work which is not examinable. Then you write. Yes, you'll have a week and a half of writing, and then at the end, the last week of September, when you come back, you'll do the new work that Group 1 would have already done. Then we continue with work until the end of October, have our 1 week break, continue with work for 3 weeks in November, and then we write finals. So we still have to do perimeter and area. Total surface area and volume have been taken out for this year, but we will look at total surface area as a investigation kind of thing in the class. Then we still need to do more plans and data handling. So we actually don't have that much to do.
So what is the last day of school?
The last day of school after exams, everything, 15th of December. Remember, we would finish about a week before that so that all the marking can get done and we can make sure that everyone meets all the criteria, and then the department can check all the marks. So, yeah, so you probably end about, and I'm talking under correction, probably about the 5th of December, 5th, 6th day somewhere.
What is
The 25th for teachers, so probably the 27th for learners. So you still get quite a nice long holiday. In the new year. Either the 25th or the 27th. So they said the 25th is teachers, and learners follow a few days later. So normally it's 2 days later, so it would normally be the 27th, but they haven't actually released the official date for that. So that's still 5 weeks of holiday, so it's still a proper normal December holiday. Actually 6, because you technically don't come to school that last week of December while we mark. A quarter would be 2/5. 3/4 is 7/5. Okay, let's look at that first one. So that is just the typed version of what I wrote on the board. Here is the answer to this. 1,319,900 rand is borrowed at 7.25% per annum simple interest over 30 years. Cumulated is equal to my principal plus principal times interest rate times 30 years. And I'm trying to get you used to the decimals. Okay, so 7.25 is 0.0725. If you said 0.725, it is wrong and far too much. It is 0.0725. So if you think you're going to forget about the decimals, then keep using the percentage sign. Okay, so because I'm used to the decimals, I find it faster than trying to find the percentage sign on my calculator. So whatever works for you gets you the right answer. So I multiply this, and my calculator gives me 0.5. Remember, it is money, so I have to add that additional 0, and then adding my principal to my interest gives me 4,190,682.50. So we have interest, which is far more than what our loan was, and that's because we are taking it over so many years. Okay, so something like this would be a home loan application, and the reason why they would take it for so many years is that even though the interest is a hell of a lot at the end, the monthly amount that they have to pay is more affordable to them in the short term. But in the long term, that is actually to their detriment, because they are paying more than double in interest than what they actually took out in the first place. And that is why banks actually are quite willing to give house loans, because they play the long run game. They look at how much money they can gain in the long run. And that is more than double the actual loan. Okay, my next one. Objections? You objecting? My next one. 359,599 rand and 26 cents is invested at 17.05% per annum simple interest over 3¼ years. So it's my principal plus my principal times my interest rate times my number of years. And once again, be careful with using 3¼ as a fraction on a Casio. Rather convert it to the decimal. My interest portion is 199,262.94, rounding it off there, adding it to my principal, giving me 558,862.20. Money has to have the additional 0. Any questions? Any questions that your calculator did something funny? So you probably get -1 mark for that. Yeah. So you still will get 2 out of 3. Okay. So that's yes, Kim. No. You will not be given this formula. You will never be given an interest formula. You have to know it by yourself. So simple interest, you have to know how to do it this way. Compound interest, you have to know how to break it up, which we will do either tomorrow, not tomorrow, Thursday or Friday, because I didn't see you tomorrow. Okay. So that is simple interest. I would give you a scenario, I'd give you the interest rate, I'd give you the number of years, and I would ask you some calculations based on it, questions based on it. What is the interest? What is the accumulated? So on and so forth. Okay? So I'm telling you now, like I told all the other classes, you will get a simple interest question in your test. The next part of simple interest, because it uses simple interest with the calculation, is hire purchase. Okay? So when we buy any item on a shop, or at a shop like a fridge or a couch or an Xbox or a microwave, anything that we take on credit from a shop, we are buying it on hire purchase. Okay? And generally we have to pay a deposit, so just to know that we are serious about the purchase, they ask us for a deposit. And then the balance, what is still left on that product, it's taken on a loan. Okay, over a certain number of months. It's normally 24, 36 months. And the very important part, which I'll never tell you in a test, is that hire purchase follows a simple interest calculation. So you need to know that hire purchase follows a simple interest calculation. So writing a quick note, not writing everything, you would write hire purchase, buying items on credit at a shop, deposit paid, balance on credit, simple interest. Okay, I purchase, items bought on credit at a shop, deposit must be paid, balance is paid off, and interest, simple interest is charged. Quick note, please. Okay, next thing we're going to look at is just the important terms that we need. We'll probably have to show the slide again tomorrow. So you can actually pack away. We'll write the terms tomorrow. We'll just read it now. So you have to have these notes. After that, you can pack away. So you're all packing away. Are you packing away? Okay, so here are all the terms that we will write down tomorrow. And all of them will turn into calculations. So if I ask you for a deposit, it would be a deposit calculation. If I ask you for the balance, it would be a balance calculation. If I ask you for the monthly repayments on the loan, you would have to calculate the loan and then divide by the number of months. And if I ask you the total cost, then it's a deposit plus loan plus interest. So we'll look at writing these definitions, and we are going to look at 2 questions involving hire purchase and all the different what. So we'll do one together and we'll do one by ourselves. And then later in the week, and there is a hire purchase question as well, and later in the week we'll look at compound interest. Even though there's no compound interest now, there could be compound later in the year. Doubtful, but we have to teach it. But it is a very big part of interest in grade 11. So I was going to ring in less than a minute. Is there any questions so far? About the tests, about the work done at home, Shane? Yes, the outline is on. Probably going to be caught by the bell, but I can show you quickly. So it is in the outlines folder, not the grade 10 maths literacy folder. And it is a very detailed outline, which is not something we normally do. I'll show you tomorrow. But because of COVID and the wishy-washy of people being in school and not being in school, we have decided to give quite a detailed outline. But that doesn't mean every test is going to be like that. Okay, so I do expect very good marks for this test. I will see you on Thursday, 10, and then we will have to good morning. Okay, let's see.
Cool.
Good morning, grade 8. Let's first do those tests. Huh? What? I'll show you now.
For all subjects, ma'am.
All subjects, all grades here. Do you see Mr. White asleep for technology? Remember, I will come around the bed and not move from your desk. Okay. The bed covering. If you have a seat, as soon as you turn away, please. Okay. So I'll quickly show you where your outlines are. Okay, so on OneDrive, so your starting page of OneDrive, you guys have EHS academics, exam outlines, and past papers. You go into exam outlines, then it starts from 2020, grade 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. They've actually changed it. So we are going to grade 8. Then there's term 1 and term 3. You're going to term 3. And so far, the outlines that are up for grade 8 is your NS outline, your Afrikaans outline, your EMS outline, and your history outline. And the last one is your mathematics outline. Okay? Oh, shucks, just hold on.